Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. I was watching to see when my 1:30. How about that for timing? Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Awesome. My name's Debbie McGraw. I'm co-chair of the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network. I also work for the Salvation Army in Saskatoon as a housing case manager, and I am your moderator for today's session. I'd like to welcome everybody. We have 3 different groups that are presenting, so I'm going to use my slip and slide method. Some of you has witnessed it yesterday, and then at the end we'll allow 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. And so if you have questions for a particular speaker, it would be great if you remember the name of that speaker so you can direct your question to that person. But I'm sure anybody here could answer any of your questions. So I'd like to welcome you to the workshop From Extractive to Empowering, Redefining Storytelling and Narrative in the Housing Landscape. And our first group to start off will be looking at, as you see, stories for transformation, self-determination, and shared living and lived experiences expertise. And our speakers are Charlene Look and Candace Thomas from Homeward Trust Edmonton. And the floor is all yours, ladies.
Hello everyone, I welcome you. First of all, I'd like to do the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we're here in Halifax, Jibotok, in Mi'kmaqi, the ancestral and unceded territory of Mi'kmaq people. In the Cree language we say, Nenaskumtnan, Kitaskinak, Kapimamawapiak. We are honored to be gathered here in your traditional territory. So our objective today in sharing our presentation is to focus on the stories of transformation and approach to self-determination and shared living experience and expertise. Why these stories are significant are for the healing and empowerment of those that have experienced homelessness. Myself, Charlene Aluk. I am from Kisapegamak, Big Stone Cree Nation. I have 3 children. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. My parents are Alexander Aluk and Lena Aluk. My families are both in Big Stone Cree Nation and in Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. And for Candace, my other co-presenter, who is my niece. This is a family.
It's a family affair.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Candace Thomas. Also known, my spirit name is Kisagal Pisam. That means day sun in Cree. I am a mother of 7. I'm actually a student at Norquest College. I'm taking my 2nd year in Indigenous Studies. I'm also from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, and my father is from the Métis Nation, Region 5. He's passed, but I also identify as Métis. And that's about it. Yeah. Hi.
So we are part of the PAC committee at Homeward Trust, the Participant Advisory Committee. I am also a student at the University of Alberta. I am studying my master's in environmental sciences and my thesis in place names and mapping and the health and well-being and the impacts of land degradation and the need for conservation. So, next slide. We'll begin our presentation. Perfect. Oh, done. We did that. So this is our group, our beautiful family of the Participant Advisory Committee. We all come here with experienced, lived, the expertise on how to better assist Homeward Trust in how to better deliver the programs or services or add our input to enhance any services or training that may be needed for frontline workers and social workers. We developed a training called Kawigihanawak Collaboratively. This is our work that we are very passionate about to ensure that those that are experiencing homelessness or needing supports to better be understood, as we've all been in that seat where we needed assistance and needed to ensure that we're also in a way delivering it so that our message is not lost along the way of trying to access services. Everyone in the committee is a community leader in some capacity, so many of them now, they work in the community delivering services. Each of us represents, like I mentioned, the experiences and the expertise, and we're all unique. We all come from different backgrounds that are valuable to advising the programs and services as mentioned, and also mostly in the Edmonton's housing system sector. And we also operate as a bridge between the housing and homeless serving sector and the communities that it serves. PAC and YAG are advocates. We are disruptors. We are experts. We're bringing access to knowledge that organizations otherwise wouldn't access. We bring forward solution-focused ideas for projects and initiatives that we know can improve the lives of people who are and were where we have been. So we have this mutual empowerment where we support one another. We are a family. We can bounce ideas off each other. We can be constructive in the feedback that we give to each other. We don't take anything personally, as you know, we've healed along the way with sharing our journeys, and we have a safe space there so we all can be more understanding and more empathetic to what the individual is experiencing, especially when there is sensitive information that is being discussed. And finally, and most importantly, we approach work with love, respect, and we love to laugh. We're like the deadly aunties. We love humor, and that's what keeps us going. Together, we are bringing reconciliation to action, doing our best to make sure that no voices are left behind.
So today we'll be covering content from exploitative to empowering. So number 1 is defining the problem. 2 is storytelling as a solution. 3 is safeguarding your story. And number 4 is approaches to asking information. So defining the problem, that has been controversial because it's been extractive, like for myself in my own journey, and having, having to go through houselessness and, defining and going through the systems, I've had to re-traumatize myself all the time with telling my story to one service provider, to like either the health care system or, a housing worker, and then, like having to call the police or telling the police, and it's just like re-traumatizing and taking that power away from me because I'm being hurt every time I tell it. And so, like sometimes even doing research is also tokenizing and extractive, and it does not bring any power to anybody, especially the person that's giving the information to the person. So that can present barriers to the to the individual that wants to access the services. So in defining that, I would stop going to that service if I had to tell my story 5 times, or tell another person in the same sector hey, can't you just read notes? It was just that power holding space was I was not having enough power. I was not having enough storytelling, or I just felt really dehumanized because I had to be in constant trauma, and that really it just stopped me from accessing anything. So next one. Is that you? Okay, sorry. Next.
So how does storytelling present a solution? So what storytelling approach to sharing one's experience does for the individual? It is an exercise in the rights to self-determination and empowerment, allows the individual to define their self instead of having to self-identify within someone else's terms. For instance, when individuals seek housing, they need to answer questions accordingly to see if they qualify. But that's intimidating because you're making sure you don't want to get that incorrect answer. So rather than having the individual come forward and try to answer the questions correctly to be qualified, rather allow them space to share their story, as you should know your questions, and that could be filling in the blanks as they are speaking. So that gives them this chance to be more of the focused on what their needs are rather than vice versa of the application that they're trying to complete. For instance, Indigenous people come from an environment of patriarchal systems and the Indian Act. We have been stripped of our inherent right, and through residential schools and, even foster systems right now, the foster care systems that constantly, have to conform to. Residential school is detrimental in our growth, and it's still affecting us through the intergenerational trauma. This trauma really takes hold of us where we fear to get it wrong, but instead we need to ensure that we are getting it right, because we are the ones that are living through this emotion of, bureaucracy and the policies that hinder us today. And it's always through policies, and who develops them? Non-Indigenous people, who bring out these tools that say that they're reconciliation, but in the long run, it's not reconciliation if we're not at the table making these decisions. And we need to have autonomy over our own story. It is important of the healing process. This healing will never reach its end. It's not going to stop. It's an ongoing process. So once you have individuals housed, you will need to have services and supports in place to continue their healing. Healing is not linear, and its triggers happen, and the grief, the loss of being on the street is also a culture, and it is a culture shock for those that are attaining new homes. So in this way, when you're sharing their story, they own their past. They process their experience. They make sense of it, and they are the sole authority of it. So when they're telling their story, it's creating that autonomy, where it's incorporating that confidence, that hope, that belief, that support, the compassion. They're in that process to better serve them, and it's for them that this work is being done. The stories grow, and it grows with them, and it is more, as they share it, it does heal, and they are able to better focus on what is strong and what, instead of not what's wrong. Learning to reframe their experiences in this is incredibly empowering. It's a process of rediscovery, helping the individual finally feel that all that they went through isn't for nothing. In some ways, you can be blessed for your path, because it's what's made you who you are today. And this aligns with the concept of the Cree worldview, that you choose your life, and that every life has a purpose, and there's a destiny that's going to be well obtained, and it's going to help others significantly. Beyond the individual benefits of self-determination and storytelling practices. So different stories for different seasons. Being houseless was a season in my life. That's not my slide. This is aligning with my words.
Yes, it is. She lands. So different stories for different seasons. So being houseless was a season in my life, and there's a time to tell that story. So not every day I would tell this story to everybody. And it took a lot of time to recognize, like, hey, this is my story. This is my power. I'm not just going to give it away. I've been giving it away forever. I've been giving it away through systems and people that do not recognize or respect me or respect my story. So this is like knowledge transfer, because I'm giving you knowledge of me, of my culture, of my spirit, and if it's not reciprocated or taking any mutual respect, that's like, that healing is not taking place. That healing is stopped right there, right? So storytelling is an exercise in building empathy. So we're not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for sympathy when I tell my story. I'm looking for something that you can recognize in my story, that you can take away from it. Not from, oh, I feel so bad because you just told me that this traumatizing story and this is going to be, we could really help you in, getting housing. And we're just like, bro, I just told you a story that really hurt me in my journey. And you're just going to kind of take that in an approach of to put sympathy on me and not empathy. That's not how we grow. So undoing power structures for system transformation. So the indigenous, for myself, indigenous philosophy is storytelling, language, culture, circles. Usually I'd rather have a circle instead of just rows. So for that, is that yours? You gotta hurry up. You gotta hurry up. I'm just kidding. But hi.
Just click my page.
I love it.
Okay. 5 minutes. Okay. Different stories for different seasons. Being houseless was a season in my life, and there's a time and tell that story. No, this is mine here. So knowledge transfer and healing is taking place. So through this Cree way, we call Nihio way, it's a process. So when we do this, we are doing Matanama Giwin. Matanama Giwin is offering and giving. This is when it comes to the individual coming, say, in your office. You're offering, you're giving, maybe a gift card or just something, that's going to help them, maybe gloves, to anything that's going to help them with the weather. And then there's that, it's taken through a way of Gyogiwin. Gyogiwin is visiting. Visiting is a place where you make that area safe for them to share. They're trusting, you're ensuring. And like Candace said earlier, moving away from your desk to just be exposed and have them see you, and not sitting behind the desk to block, because that can become intimidating. And then through this, you can also share maskaki wapwe. This is tea or anything to drink. This will help them with that, settling their anxieties, settling their fears, settling that fear of anything that maybe they be feeling, if it's going to affect their, again, eligibility. Through all this process that we go through to ensure the individual is in a good place and a safe place, we are doing Gweskwithtamok. Gweskwithtamok is deriving solutions. Through these stories that they share, they're deriving solutions and strategies to make sure that the other individuals that are coming forward have the same opportunity to be open, and you become less defensive, less putting yourself separate, but more in a reciprocal relationship-based way, and creating that foundation that you're there for them and that you want to help them and ensure that they achieve this accessing a home. You want this one? They're right here.
Okay, safeguarding your story, be accountable to yourself first, know where you're at. So this is where just knowing like if it's gonna be traumatizing, then you don't share. And so like you know your own body and your headspace and where you're at emotionally. If you don't need to spill your guts, don't do it. Don't allow yourself to be tokenized. Make sure the audience of your story is being respectful to you and your experience, that it's reciprocated, the mutual respect is there. You tell your story for the right reasons, not just to get sympathy, but also like the empathy and the compassion that is that we're also trying to seek from social workers and housing systems. Your story belongs to you and only you. So this is where you could take your power back. This is where you can share from an empowering way as opposed to like just spilling your guts and, you know, sharing the dark, deep things that are, you know, that is not emotionally safe. So this is me. So this is how to seek personal information in a good way. Strength-based, trauma-informed, empowering versus exploiting. So this person shared their story with me. I offered her water and, you know, something, you know, giving that mutual respect. And I just wanted a picture, to be honest, of like her encampment, not trying to, you know, like traumatize her or trying to like be like, hey man, I'll give you this if you give me that. No, that's not the way it works. So we actually got to share a cigarette, which is, you know, the indigenous way and how we share. We always give medicine first. So she shared a lot, and she felt okay. Like she didn't seem tokenized or like I was extracting any information from her. So I made the space for the visiting. I empowered her because she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna find some better resources, and these are the things that we need. If there's anything that I can provide for a solution, here it is. And then I met her culturally. Even though she's not Indigenous, she respected that I was Indigenous, and she took that approach, which I was grateful for. So the recap, what can you do? Create a safe space. Offering or giving, kiwego in, I'm just kidding, the visiting way, and just wakutuin, and you know that's how we support each other, because we build relationships when we do wakutuin, which ties into my last slide. So I built a relationship with Jane, but at the same time I was grateful. And so conclusion, from exploitative to empowering. So we define the problem, we use our storytelling as a solution, I safeguarded my story, and we shared the approaches of how to get information in a good way. Oh.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so they've slipped out, and now we're going to slide in our next speaker. I love this slip and slide thing. It's all about having fun. So group 2 is, as the speakers are all listed in the program, but the speakers are not here. But we do have someone filling in for them. So group 2, a lived experience-led initiative participating in grassroots advocacy that your community can model to accelerate ending homelessness. So our one and alone speaker who got left holding the bag is Helene Belorme. Lorme. Sorry. Okay, so I will give the mic to her. do you have a slide? Yeah. Okay, you got it?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ellen, and I will be hosting this presentation on behalf of John, Dorothy, and Sherry, who unfortunately could no longer make it to this conference. I'm excited to walk you through their work, though. So this project was designed to support the Central Okanagan Journey Home Society, COJHS, and the Lived Experience Circle on Homelessness, LECO, in identifying the successes and challenges of lived and living experience engagements with the homelessness serving sectors in Kelowna, British Columbia, since the design process of the Journey Home Strategy in 2018. The project was designed and methods were collaboratively established by the Kelowna Homelessness Research Center, the COGHS, and LECO to evaluate the impact of LECO from members' own perspectives and the perspective of service providers who have worked with LECO on various projects and initiatives. It is the hope of the team that this work will not only celebrate LECO's story, but publicly, but that it will expand LECO's impact and support future engagement with LECO in locally and for other communities looking to establish a LECO. So team members compile a timeline identifying each and every lived and living experience engagement. They identified key service providers from semi-structured interviews using purposive sampling. In phase 1, 10 interviews with service providers were completed, followed by a What We Heard session with 2 representatives of LECO that were not being interviewed. In phase 2, interviews were completed with 6 members and alumni of LECO, followed by another What We Heard session with the 2 same reps. So the struggles that interviewed LECO members encounter while participating in projects and building a relationship with service providers are varied, extensive, and capture further of these subteams. The challenges identified by service providers are captured in the subteams, such as inflating or overvaluing LECO's influence, with one service provider noting that, here I'm quoting, the biggest challenge currently is that LECO is viewed as the lived and living expert in our community. We must be very clear that LECO doesn't speak on behalf of every single person experiencing homelessness. LECO plays a role, but they're not the be-all and all. So the service providers identify LECO's strengths in terms of specific attributes displayed by LECO members, including the consistency of membership and the vast connection LECO has to the key stakeholders and those with living and lived experience, while remaining open to inviting service provider into their space at meeting. LECO members mentioned 2 strengths that have been particularly valuable on their journey as they seek to overcome together the significant challenges they face in their work. A key theme that emerged out of the interviews with both LECO members and service providers was the value of learning from one another through the process of working alongside different types of people. LECO has experienced significant achievements in accelerating an end to homelessness in partnership with service provider, as you can see here. However, there has been a substantial increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness in Kelowna in recent years. This crisis requires a collective impact approach that, and having a LECO in your community would be would be invaluable. We have showcased the 6 key areas of improvement raised by LECO members, and here is Sherry to tell us more.
Seeing LECO move forward, I think one of my big hopes for LECO is that we still thrive and we're still living and we're still living the experience of matter. Not just me, but others. And that my vision like everybody else, is that everybody has a home and everybody has a voice and everybody has all their needs met. But then again, the biggest cohort I'd love to see more of is the younger generation getting involved, planting the seed of those that are in school, whether it's through some toolkits that are available or others. And but yeah, just letting them know that, and also knowing the term homelessness, whether and the definition of homelessness, because a lot of people don't know they're homeless, or a lot of people don't know their grandma's homeless or sleeping on a couch or the spare room every now and then. But making it aware and getting the seeds out there to the young and making the ripple effect go out there and seeing LECO not just my big vision for me as an Indigenous person from a small community, which is probably 800 people, that needs a voice of their own. I wish that LECO could hit every little rural community, whether it's a reservation, small town in the Northwest Territories, or Enderby, for instance, Revelstoke, those little towns like that need a voice, whether they have one or two members, just to let them know that no matter where they are, I'm living lived experience. You need to be heard, and I think a lot of people fall short, especially the rural communities, because here in Kelowna it's the hub, and look at the services they have here. There's not much. There is services, but everything's such a backlog, and not just that, they're limited and housing. But I think about the people in this city who have the food banks, who have Colonial Gospel Mission or other organizations out there feeding them. But I think about the small person in a small community sleeping in somebody's shed or having a little tent out back in some yard. And there's a lot of hidden homeless in the small rural communities. And I believe LECO, my dream is for them to expand to the small communities so that the bigger cities won't forget about these smaller ones. And the funders out there too, because these people are falling through the cracks.
So Sherry and Dorothy now invite us to their virtual storytelling circle to further inform our understanding of the varied components of LECO's work, achievements, trial, and proposed solutions. So we're going to see Dorothy, then Sherry, and then again Dorothy.
Dancing to authentic kakio, kita tamskat no, pugite haik. Tahti nipin piesis, nakotan sigason. Eugigi vigoran, tigasputan lihon. My name is Dorothy Goodhye. I am from the Cree Nation, Satellite Cree Nation of Alberta, recently, but an independent all my life. And being that independent, I've experienced many things, and I didn't even realize I was homeless, like that label. For many years, I helped other people through their dealings with the ministry, having their children apprehended. I would go help them, my mother and I, put the family back together, get housing for them, everything they needed to be put back to being a whole human being again. So going through the process of becoming a LECO member has opened my eyes as to what my life experience was, and very impactful. But through it all, I've survived again one more ordeal in life, and having done so, will applaud the people program brought forward by the LECO group, the task force, and the Central Okanagan Journey Home Society through Urban Matters. That program helped me to develop into a strong character, all of us, and the rapport that we had with each other, with relationships we developed in that circle of the original 33 people. Yes, we've lost a few, but they're always in our minds and in our hearts. And it taught us to be strong people with clear minds, strong hearts, and brave souls to go on to do the things that we were set out to do in the endeavor to end the situation at hand of people that are unhoused and bring them back to being and feeling like they're part of the human race and human beings again. The People program touched on most everything to build good character, and I hope still does, and we need to bring that forward, even if it needs to be an enhanced way, to bring back that whole rapport that we had going so they don't lose that going forward. Through that program, we brought forward a program called the Simulator Project in an awareness and anti-stigma campaign with all the stakeholders and the community members. It was a turning point in awareness and anti-stigma campaign because it taught the greater community in that exercise the reality of what goes on in a person's life when they have nowhere to be and nowhere to go and absolutely apparently no recourse in life and have come to a dead end. I think it opened many people's eyes and opened many doors in the community, and I'm grateful for that. And going forward, we'd like to again bring that together also with a colonial version of us and them, with the story of the people that we have had here and that we have here, because their voice is important in bringing them to being whole human beings in comfort and in happiness, like they all deserve to be, like we all deserve to be. Thank you.
As an Indigenous woman born first in Canada, I'm from the Goti Band, Fourth Province, Northwest Territories, and it's very much like nothing fits, nothing's working for us, and I believe I've used this word many a times. I'm about lip service and system change. And I'm also about spreading awareness that, there's so much other people there, so many non-Indigenous people, organizations are out there and willing to find out and to want to know what they can do. And I think one of the biggest things is addressing intergenerational guilt. It's not their guilt to carry for whatever generation for harm on the Indigenous people of Canada and across the world. But also, they have to remember, we were here a long time ago. We never had homelessness. We've never had incarceration. We've never had crime. We've never had disease. And going back to the roots of that is very, very important, especially when it comes to addressing frontline workers, to meeting people at equal grounds and such things I'll bring up and I use all the time, and which was so grateful to integrate into our allyship research, was the Sacred Circle. And honoring the little protocols that are out there, like giving tobacco and remembering that it may be bad to like the colonial system, it's going to cause this, but if you give it tobacco, it's also an offering you can give. And it's used in many ways, not just smoking. And what I think, when I think of what I'm doing, I've used many hats. I've worked in, right from politicians, from MLAs to, I worked for a language commissioner at one point, but knowing both sides, and I feel more comfortable in a position where I can make a difference for Indigenous people, but not, when you look at the truth, the call to action for the truth and reconciliation, I also think of those with not just from the Indigenous lens, but the homeless lens. I look at the call to action, every single one of those same things that I as Indigenous person and those like me have built in these systems, these colonial systems, have not worked and are not working. And these same systems that are were discriminatory against me and my people are still discriminatory against the homeless, which are not Indigenous, but I mean, it's like a call to action for them, not just how they teach Indigenous people, how they treat all people. And I think addressing common decency and common human rights for all, when it comes to that, it can help everybody. And I've known so many people that have gone from being down and out where they had nothing to death row when it came to alcohol and drugs. And what saved them was Indigenous wellness, well-being, to sobriety for them. And I'm grateful for those that helped. Also, I think one of the biggest things is that there's so many resources out there. And if you're going to be getting Indigenous dollars, make sure they're going to Indigenous people, not people that say they're going to Indigenous. And that's another thing I have a problem is the definition right there. And maybe someday that maybe that can be figured out. And I'm not that I think it's wrong. I just think that there's a lot of Indigenous dollars are being used, but are not being used on Indigenous people. But then again, there goes again with decolonization of our systems. But the hardest part is decolonizing the funders and the money part, the wonderful quantitative data. But then again, we all know that Indigenous, and I think when it comes to lived experience and Indigenous, I'm speaking, I'm telling my story. That itself it's been practiced with my people for hundreds and millions, since time immemorial, storytelling. And it's really great that people out there are listening to storytellers like us, not just me, but my brothers and sisters that are homeless too. And I think that's one step to indigenizing the systems that are so need to be done. And I'm also part of a working group that's across Canada. It's called the PATS program. And it's adding to and sensitizing and adding a little cultural sensitivity, I guess, that Canada needs so much. People across, not just that, because people forget they have their own biases, their own sensitivities that's ingrained in us, and we forget that. But just going back to knowing that we know what we do, we know what's right for us. Again, it's like that saying, nothing about us without us. The same with Indigenous people. We know what we're doing. We have the systems we always have, and just trusting us and working with us, not against us, and not against, but working as a collaboration for whoever can help, which way system it can help to better the system. But again, the PATH program is about getting helping with homelessness. It's kind of adds to the VAT system and for that. And with that, it's just amazing how we must remember that. And again, that's one of the biggest struggles, especially when it comes to funding and research and trying to make projects that work. And grassroots organizations, and I sort of got, and not just me, probably almost everybody that has an Indigenous worldview that I was so blessed to be born into, is try to have that circular worldview into a triangle. It's still my struggle, but I think as we move forward today and with the awareness that's out there, not just people that's willing to learn, but just telling whoever wants to hear, or just maybe even reteaching everything from school right to kindergarten. But again, that's the biggest struggle, trying to get that circle and triangle. And I think together, and like with many of my work that I've done with other people, thank God for other people that are good at with the triangle stuff, for helping me get my little circular worldview in there somewhere. And we'll make it fit. Thank you.
And then lastly, Dorothy again.
Having been at that national gathering of elders, Indigenous elders, really opened my eyes to the fact that they have so many challenges. And yet the life should be simple and easy for them. And having built the the rapport with the people we've met through the lived experience circle here in Kelowna and how we built that up, I realized that that can be done in that realm also, and in any realm. The answers are simple, the beginnings are simple. It's so simple, it can be done with such ease that is my next endeavor, is to help them become happy, honed, and happy, and at peace. That will be my next endeavor, using that same model we used to develop the LECO, the task force, the Journey Home Society, and the rapport we have with our community at large and all our stakeholders. Pray for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, because it was not my research project, please contact Stephanie Lang at ask.khrc@ubc.ca. So the impact of lived experience on the homeless sector community report that goes into greater detail can be found on the KHRC website under the resource tab. Thank you.
Elaine, it was great of you to step in for a project that wasn't even yours. That's amazing. Thank you. So now we're sliding in our third group. I know, I'm getting good at this. This will be a pattern from here on in. So our third group will be From Roots to Home, visualizing the journey from homelessness to housing in mid-sized cities. Yeah. And our speakers will be Aaron Day. How do you pronounce it?
Thank you. Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Good.
Wow, I'm proud of
Thank
myself.
you so much.
Barbara McPhee and Deborah Hill, all from Wilfrid University, Waterloo, Ontario. I think I got that right. All right. All right.
What a great start. I'm a liar.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to, who's the first speaker? Aaron? Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for being here and choosing this session. I'm so proud of this work, and so it's an honor to get to present it to you today. We are a team of lived experts and researchers who've come together to better understand and respond to misperceptions about homelessness in mid-sized cities. So this is a shout out to our full research team. So 3 of us are here today, but there's a lot of people that we've been able to work with to bring this to light. Very briefly, I want to spend all the time with Barb and Deborah, but so very briefly, our research is looking at perceptions of homelessness in 3 mid-sized cities in southern Ontario. And so the research is being conducted on the traditional territories of the Neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people and on the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. And so that work is being done in Brantford, Guelph, and Cambridge, Ontario. Shout out to Cambridge, to the folks there. So part of the reason that we're doing this work is that we see that so much of the research and the media attention about homelessness really focuses on big cities. It focuses on Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver and things like that. There's also very cool work being done on rural homelessness, and we've already heard in this conference some of the amazing people doing that work on rural and remote homelessness. So we're looking at those communities in between, in that middle space, and how these communities are managing increased visible homelessness. So we've done a few things with this project, including we did 86 interviews with people in those 3 cities. And right now we're actually putting together a film, so hopefully we'll be able to present that next year. And in addition to this, our lived expert research team, which includes Barb, Deborah, and our friend Simon, who couldn't be with us today, took the lead on their own piece of the project, which was capturing their collective journeys through homelessness in art. So we wanted to share with you this art today. And so Deborah and Barb will speak to it in detail, but this is the image, it's also on our t-shirts, that the team created. So we commissioned the artwork by a brilliant lived expert artist named Andrea Fay. And alongside this image, there's a narrative. So if you want to scan our shirts later, we got a QR code where the full narrative explaining the image can be found. So I won't be able to get into all of the elements, but I'll just highlight a few before turning it over to Barb and Deborah. So you'll see that the tree image is divided into two parts. One is what happens when people are provided with care and support, and the other side, the decaying side, is what happens when people aren't given the tools to thrive. The roots, which is a little bit cut off to fit in a PowerPoint, but you see the roots there a bit. The roots show that many of the journeys start with hard times, with poverty, and with trauma. The land is dry, representing colonization and the disrespect for the land and its stewards since time immemorial. The tree trunk shows dents and chips as people struggle, but it's also really tough bark, and it gets at that resiliency that people have. The ladder is the path to becoming housed, and it's not linear, and there's broken, pieces to that. But as people go up the ladder, things get brighter. And the vines on the ladder and the tree show the care and resources people receive along the way. Making it to the tree house. And so this is when you make it to housing where people feel welcome and safe. The journey continues with the sun providing light and energy. You'll see it as the doorknob is the sun. And the moon reminding us of the cycles of life. The roses on the windowsill show us that there are still thorny moments, but that people are protected by the leaves and the branches, and the bird is there to sing a joyful tune. So that's the image that we're so proud to show, and I'm going to pass it to Barb first, who's going to tell us more.
So, being born into generational poverty is not a choice, but how you navigate it is. You can wallow in the oh poor me syndrome, or you can finally plant your roots and grow. Participating as a lived experience expert in this NIMBY project at Wilfrid Laurier University has helped me to bright the light not only of my life story, but the grassroots story of many. It has helped me to believe that the paths we take to make our lives normal may be paths that lead us to hunger, mental health issues, depression, and homelessness. So helping to create this image became a true story of life. May the 4th be with you. In 1953, I was born strongly rooted into a family of 8. The Brady Bunch, per se. We had 3 girls and 3 boys. Living in my grandmother's basement, not really knowing that we were poor until I could not go on school trips or events like other kids. It was then that I realized that the struggle I was going to have to endure to work my way out of this poverty that I had to carry in my pocket. It was not going to be easy. After leaving home and creating a family, it seemed like I was on my way up. Met many challenges, such as living with an abusive alcoholic, moving 7 times in 11 years, and finally realized that to be a survivor, I needed to leave this life that was going nowhere in order to get this poverty out of my pocket. But instead added survival also to my pocket to hold on to. Not an easy road being homeless and having to couch surf, basement crawl, as well as sleeping in my car a time or two with 2 children. I still was not giving up. When finally housed into a subsidized unit, it was a townhouse complex where there was also a community center that actually saved my life with all its community resources and caring staff and neighbors. I used those resources to find jobs that allowed me to bring my self-taught social skills to the forefront and become a community leader. Adding a bit of resilience to my pocket to partner up with the survival skills to help to override that poverty that was still there. I met an amazing partner that gave me hope that this was the answer to where I could get my white picket fence. But I guess that was not to be. After a few wonderful years together and being able to work 3 part-time jobs to get my children into college, that nasty thing called cancer knocked at the door, and the white picket fence disappeared, along with this amazing man's life. Depression and having to move out as I was overhoused became my next obstacle. Of course, with the 7-year waiting list for another housing unit was crazy, and I was forced to again couch surf, basement crawl. I got to live in my trailer, but it was only seasonal, until the opportunity to move into my family home with my father as my mom had passed away. There was a home for me to move into, or was it just a house? During the 3 years I was there, I got ill and was hospitalized for 2 months and left with mobility issues and lots of depression, while caring for my dying father, who passed away then, too, of cancer. Shortly after his death, the house was sold and no equity came my way. So for 3 years, from the age of 58 to 61, I again struggling to continue to survive without a home. Only now I added disability and mental health issues to the poverty in my pocket. Again, turning to my community helped me to use my ability to recover from all my past setbacks and use my strengths and survival skills learned along the way. The climb up the tree from the dark, gloomy branches side to the bright green, brilliant colored side to find my home sweet home with sunshine and beauty, filling my days and surrounding my home with love and caring has taken place of my white picket fence, and it works. Poverty still sits in my pocket, but it sits there along with my strength, resilience, and survival skills to keep my life balanced. So yes, poverty sucks, but only if you let it. But I don't let it. As a single mom, I have been the president of the Better Beginnings, Better Futures Provincial Network, including 11 cities all over the province of Ontario. I was able to be on the ground floor to help to develop the Guelph Neighborhood Support Coalition, hosting 15 neighborhood groups in the city of Guelph, sitting on the board of directors, and now running one of the programs called the North End Harvest Market that provides fresh produce free to low-income families. I was able to be on the ground floor of the Poverty Elimination Task Force for Guelph and Wellington, and still am on the steering committee and support the Community Voices team. I also sit on the Ontario Health team as a peer-lived expert advisor for over 2 years, as well as lending my housing and homelessness experience help in the direction of the 3 supportive housing units currently in Guelph. This tree image speaks to the struggles, survival, resilience, strength, and sunshine that can be achieved by just listening with love, compassion, and kindness, because we all have a story that is rooted deep in our hearts. Thanks to the amazing crew of the Wilfrid Laurier research team for listening and appreciating our stories.
Thank you, Barb. At the age of 5, I had experienced my first homelessness. I witnessed my dad hit my mom in the arm with my plastic bat. One of my sisters and I ran down the hall and sprang onto the bed, crying with our hands covering our faces. I still cry as I recall that evening. Sego, Scano, bonjour. Hello, my name's Deborah. My Ongohoan name is Her House is Bright. I grew up Six Nations New Credit Reserve in Brantford, and now in Brantford, Ontario. Thank you, and I welcome you to this year's Canadian Homelessness Conference. I'm glad to speak with you and share my voice with you. I remember that long dark road my mom, my siblings, and I walked away from my dad's house. I recall looking back, unsure if my dad was going to come and get us. It was 1 kilometer away to my aunt's house. It was 1 kilometer away to keep my mom safe from being hit again. We lined the basement floor with blankets of beds for 8 of us. You see, sometimes some events in our lives are out of our control. What we can control is how we stay safe, or just safe enough. In my adult journey, I experienced abuse by my partner. The promises changed were almost immediately broken,
It took me 3 years to finally break free from being the victim of somebody's out of control, mad, drunken behavior. I was almost a statistic of the missing and murdered. To escape this abuse, I had to run, hide, couch surf, admit to detox, stay in shelters. I was still not safe, but I was safe enough. Sometimes hard choices need to be made, which bring hard reactions. It is tough to find enough discipline to make those reactions turn into actions. These actions are very crucial for staying safe or just safe enough. There's just simply are not enough resources or enough safe places available to help people in immediate need. When someone has a chance to run, they need to run to a safe place. Sometimes planning to move is not available, and when there is a chance, it might be the only chance to run like hell. The homeless circle or crisis is due to a lack of affordable homes, support systems, and service gaps. I hope that today we can make that change. It starts with a voice. Less than 5 years ago, my peers would call me the busiest volunteer in Brantford. I was doing the needle sweeps, volunteering at the snack bar at the health center. I was a member on the Community Advisory Board for Homelessness. I was attending Brant Speaking School, learning about public speaking. I didn't make it to the Toastmasters or a TED Talk, but instead I would speak to anyone or everyone I could. I went to college and I received a diploma in Indigenous Wellness and Addiction Prevention. I would go to the community and I would speak of acceptance, kindness, compassion, all to vulnerable people. My suggestions for helping others seemed to be ignored. I wanted to make change. I wanted to be a voice to be heard. It was difficult to do when I was the only one person, me alone, to fight. But to fight with who? The government, the MP, society? I felt defeated. One day I received an email asking if I'd be interested in participating in a research project. The project was about how people made sense in response to homelessness, public spaces, and security. The aim was to develop a different way of thinking and talking about homelessness. It was to make recommendations for law enforcement, social services, business owners, and community stakeholders, and to use those recommendations to create community resiliency. Make the city a more inclusive place for people who experience homelessness, a safe place. I was interviewed by Laurier University, Jason and Marcus, by Zoom. And when we finished, they asked me if I was interested in participating. Well, I could only answer yes, and it couldn't come out fast enough. It was like they were reading my mind, but instead it was like a casserole. They made sense of all the smorgasbord that was on my head. But to be honest, after the call ended, I felt as though I was the person doing the hiring, like they were going to work for me. That is how comfortable it was to work with this project. And Aaron had made an excellent addition to bringing us to this beautiful logo, or to this image. We meet by Zoom. The researchers at Laurier ask us questions. We have the discussions, and they listen to us. The team, Barb, Simon, and I, share our experience, our thoughts, and make recommendations. Gift bags were given out to community members who shared with the researchers last year. The three of us shared ideas on what to include in these gift bags. Our ideas, thoughts, our voices were heard and validated. Do you know how rejuvenating it is to be heard? It's like, wow. So together we developed the tree. It stands for many issues that happen continuously out there. Within each of our communities, we, Barb, Simon, and I, we work, volunteer, and go to school to help others. Why? It's because we have experienced the homelessness. We know the feeling of being homeless. We share similar situations, but most importantly, we care. We have compassion. Before I leave you, I want to share with you some numbers, but don't worry, there's no math. But I just want you to hear it. In Brantford, there are 4 shelters for people to rest. One has 7 beds for ages 15 to 18, totaling, there's one shelter that has 10 beds for ages 18 to 29, and they're partnered with St. Leonard's. And that's, okay. One shelter is for women who experience domestic abuse with 33 beds. One is for both men and women with 20 beds. One is a hostel for men with 42 beds, totaling 112 beds. Now, 453 people experience homelessness in Brantford. The last number I saw it was in May 2023, leaving 341 plus 1 without shelter. It was recorded that 555 encampments were visited by outreach. These numbers turn my stomach, they anger me, and leave me almost hopeless. We are safe, but are we safe enough? Thank you.
Well, I thought the questions will be for her.
I did it without crying.
Okay, so can I have the rest of you guys come back up? Just slide your way up for Q&A.
And I have a microphone here to bring around to the crowd to anyone who has questions.
It's all about the dance. It's all about the dance.
Jingle dance. Hey, where'd all our audience go?
Erin, what are you doing?
I just thought there weren't enough chairs.
No, I did a count before I invited everybody up. I made sure.
Friends, thank you so much. There's something incredibly sacred about storytelling when you share so deeply. So you invited us into a holy place. My question is too big, but I'd love to have any thoughts on what this word home means to you. We have stories, we have a picture, and I have this deep sense that there's profound wisdom in the room. And I'd love to hear any thoughts, not necessarily from everybody, on what is home and how do you know when you found it?
I've always said that a house is a house, and it's a roof over your head, and it keeps you warm and whatnot. A home is your heart. Home is where your heart is. A home is where your family is, and that's, to me, is the difference. That everybody can have a house or a tent or something, but to have a home is where your heart is.
Anybody else want to add to that up here?
I will.
Okay. You guys up here have to share 2 microphones.
So for myself, our spirit always has a home. It's in the spirit world. Well, for me it is anyway. And our physical, it took a long time for me to actually have a home. It took me 9 years of being on the street, living rough, living couch surfing and all those things, but I finally made a home when I felt at home. Like, I knew that I wasn't gonna get kicked out. I knew that I was on a lease. I knew that I could pay my rent. I knew that I could, sustain that. So that's when my house became a home. And especially when it was like for my children as well. It wasn't just mine. It was also their home. Whenever they wanted to come home, they were there.
For me, when I drive down to the reserve to go get gas, and I could just, when I feel that lifting off my chest, and I know that I'm home.
Any other questions? Come on, you guys. There's got to be lots of questions out here.
I wanted to thank the first presentation for just like the framing of storytelling in this way of power, because we also do lived expertise engagement, and I find that we're always in this space of bridging into these municipalities, and there's such a struggle for them to understand our stories and our experiences, and then I feel like they don't see the full human, or they don't see like there's just so many barriers there. And I wonder, what is your experience in that bridging space, and have you any insights on further further getting that story into their understanding so that they reframe how they approach and experience us?
So for us, as PAC members, when we say we bridge, we are that story of sharing, and sharing our stories really encompasses all of our experiences. So when we collaboratively created this training, it was specifically for frontline workers to share our experiences, to let them know what, the fears, the rejection, the, taking away our confidence in trying to access housing. So that's our bridge in trying to educate the frontline workers to ensure that they are open and receptive to the individuals that need homes, to not be creating more barriers. So more like not being by the book, know the book, but learn to maneuver it, to tailor it to fit those that need it, because not everyone is in that. I think we were talking earlier, there's a linear process, and this one does not have to be. So.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your stories and experiences with us. And I recently joined the Guelph community in a new role about 15 months ago, and have had the absolute pleasure and privilege of working with Barb and learning from her, and really appreciate being here today, and thank you to everyone.
I think one of the things that we have done in Guelph through our North End Harvest Market, which gives fresh produce free to low-income families, is we put in a small grant and we created a program called Community Builders. So we took 7 lived experience people who wouldn't say boo, who didn't know one another, and we did a 6-week program. We paid them every Thursday for 6 hours at living wage. We paid their childcare, we paid their transportation, and we had organizations that supplied the place to have the meetings, and actually, like mental health and a few other organizations provided lunch. So out of that, those few people that came, we created a family. And those people now are out speaking, talking about, and not afraid to tell their story, but realize that telling their story in a safe environment is creating community leaders. And so that's something that we're working very hard to. We want money to continue that to all of our lived experience experts.
Over here.
As any one of you did you say your story to schools? Is that something that you have envisioned to raise awareness of the young that homelessness people are not to be stigmatized because their parents do stigmatize them? And I was wondering if it was something that you were looking at.
Personally, like I live in the inner city of Edmonton, so I see encampments every day. And me and my daughter, we walk through that because sometimes I have to walk her to school. So she's like, I feel so bad, Mom. But I said, you know what, my girl, those people, we just gotta pray for them right now. And like, if we have extras, we go give it, you know. And we see them as humans. We see them as aunties and uncles that are, you know, just having a hard time right now. And we pray that they get a home, that they get water, that they get shelter, and like the things that they need. So I know that they do have some schools that will like make care packages for people and hand them out. I don't know if they have done that since COVID, but that's what I know of, like children. And it's just like teaching our children to be compassionate and like seeing people as humans, right? Like just because they have a home, they don't have a home, does not mean that they're not a person. So, you know, it's the affordability, it's just all these things, but I can't teach her about the value of $1 yet, because she's like, it's all mine.
One back there.
I just want to add to that.
Okay.
So,
And then another one back there.
actually, last Friday, I think it was, I was asked, 2 graduates from the Community Builders Program were asked to go to Mount Forest High School and talk to the grade 12s. And the reason that we were asked to do that is about 6 years ago, the Upper Grand District School Board did a project called Poverty Challenge. So, which was so amazing and one of the best things that I've ever participated in, that the lived experience were, their stories were, their names were changed, but their stories were given out. So the organizations had to maneuver one day of that person's life. And then at the end of, in the afternoon, the lived experience person revealed that they were that person. So we're trying to get that more and more and more, not just in the schools systems, but we did do it with high school students. So there's lots of ways to do that.
Okay, so we'll have the one
I think
back
Deborah
there
just
in the
wants to
pink
add.
toque.
I was working for the downtown outreach team, and I got to know a lot of the workers, or a lot of the people that are experiencing homelessness. They're really great people if you want your car to be watched, and you know they're going to do it because I feed them all the time, right? And they love a home cooked meal. Also, right now I'm going to college for mental health and substance use, so we're going to make those changes and hopefully bring the light to non-stigmatizing a lot of people.
Hi, first off, thank you, everyone. My name's Philly. So I'm from Kelowna, and I run the Upstream Kelowna project, where we work in schools to prevent youth homelessness and school disengagement early. And through that work, I've been really blessed. And so first of all, I'm emotional because from your stories, I see the hundreds of kids that I worked with for 7 years that were already experiencing homelessness, street entrenchment, and all of that. And I was really blessed that through now being able to work in early intervention and being able to work inside schools, we were connected with a youth leadership team applying for a community development grant that we're hoping to just apply and learn a little bit more. And their leadership teacher reached out to us, and just having made this contact to see if they might learn more from me. And I brought in 3 youth with lived experience that I had known for a decade at this point. And we sat them in a room and we talked real talk. And my kiddos like told their story from childhood through high school, through school disengagement, through homelessness, through the loss of their friends and all of their struggles. And the students that were listening in grade 11 and 12 got to see that these were the kids that they're sitting next to in class. And it was one of the most profound moments I've had in my career. And so I just wanted to touch on that and thank you guys for thriving and sharing your story and for just making me feel. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next one was lady in the black coat back there. I didn't forget about you.
Hi, I'm Gloria. I'm from Winnipeg, West Central Women's Resource Center. I just have a question. When you do the storytelling with people in the communities, do you offer like traditional, like stage and smudging? Do they, when they ask, do you have that to provide? Just curious here.
Yeah.
Some people, like I know, like at my work, they will ask to smudge when.
Oh, for sure.
When they're
sure.
wanting to tell their stories.
Yeah. So you can even use a white cloth this smudge. Like I use anything, sage, sweetgrass, pine. So our white cloth is just as well, just a smudge, and it's to bring the truth out and to hear the truth and to know the truth is in your heart.
We found some of it has to be done outside because it sets off the smoke
Yeah.
alarm in certain places. So.
Those hands on fire department might come.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. And they do. Yeah.
I just want to touch on what you were saying back there. I know I'm the moderator, but I'm putting my 2 cents in too. When I went back to and talking about youth, when I went back to university after 20 years of being out of school, I had a research class and we were asked to go out and interview a group of folks. So we decided to reach out to our youth organization and interview some of their kids. Of course, they had to get consent from the kids first. So we interviewed, myself and my research partner, we interviewed a group of kids between the ages of 5 and 12. And when we asked those kids where they thought they would be in 5 years from now, I left there crying because 7-year-old looked me in the eyes and he said, in 5 years, I will either be in jail or dead. And I'll never forget that because just hearing that from a 7-year-old kid broke my heart. So we really need to be reaching out to the youth and the young kids that are roaming the streets because we shouldn't have to hear that out of kids that young, out of any age. And that I just wanted to share that because it just touched on what you had said. Any other questions? We got 8 minutes, 7 minutes.
I just want to comment. I really admire you women, and I don't want to cry. But my grandmother is a Mi'kmaq, Black African Nova Scotian, with Mi'kmaq grandmother, my grandmother. And every time I look at you guys, I say thank God because if it wasn't for the Mi'kmaq community coming to East Preston, when the white man put us there to die, we would not be there. So every time I see my sisters, I give praise to God and Mother Nature for you guys, and I tell you all the time, I want to thank my elder there. I had the opportunity to go to Yellowknife a few years ago to speak, and I met this elder woman, community, and I come back feeling so blessed because she hugged me and she said, "You're one of us," and never let no one tell us. I'm never going to not tell who I am. I'm very proud of who I am, and I think that we need to engage the community more. And I want to give you guys credit. Last year we had Pancake and we had women give their stories through Zoom because of COVID, and those women gave their stories, and it was so emotional. I work with women every day, homeless. I retired, but I'm working with homelessness. And every time I go to work and I leave, I come out of there with the women that work, I feel blessed. Especially when I meet a First Nation woman that tells me her story. And not just First Nation, only one that's homeless, but I'm saying they come, even though the pain you go through, it's like the African women, the Black women, we kind of share. And I miss coming here today and not having the circle, because I think the circle is very important when we talk about healing. So in my community, we try to come together. We use this healing circle in the Africans, and I think we do that together. And I think that's really empowering. But I just want to say to you women to come here today and give your story and the work that you're doing. Continue doing it with or without funding. Let no one take away your hope and your joy. And let your kids out there, my granddaughter's 7, she keeps saying, "But Nanny, why is it like this?" I said, because the world is so cruel. But we as adults, and we say we want to come together and make the world better, we got to make government accountable. Government is why we're here, because government gives money, and I said it earlier, government gives money to corporations that build houses that we cannot afford to rent. And as long as government's giving the change, yeah, we're poor, we're homeless because government has made it this way. Because as long as government's giving money to the corporate sector, we're never going to get a homelessness, because they're building and they're getting rich. And the homeless get more and more homeless. So keep doing the work you're doing, and God bless you all. Just keep on trucking. That's my grandma said, keep on trucking. Thank you very much.
We have time for one more question if anybody has one. Once, twice, three times. We're out. Let's give a round of applause for the. Oh, wait. All right. Saved by the hand.
Thank you, ladies. One who looks out and seeks to obtain is my spirit name. I'm from here in Nova Scotia, over in Buckingham First Nation. I'm a lived experience. I've lived in the streets here in Halifax and Dartmouth. I've lost my voice time, and I can't remember how I got it back. And I want to ask you guys, how did I get my voice back so I can be able to speak, to tell people? You know, I wasn't going to stand up and say anything. You know, I was kind of felt nervous. Nervous. You know?
You just did
it. You just did it.
It took a lot of courage, you know, just to stand up to say, you know, I mean, I was a lived experience, you know. And I was looking at my badge today, and I was like, you know, I mean, they give me it, and it says my name, pronouns, stuff, right? Like, why not have it on the bottom and say lived experience? You know, I thought that I was looking at this too, right? Me and my brother are here today from Diamond Bailey Healing Center. What are some things that you could share about, like, I know I just did it, right? But what are things that you guys did, right? I guess, right? To get your voice back.
I guess, like, for myself, I had to speak my story a lot of times without crying. And I think the more that I shared with, like, feeling safe, that's the first thing. Feel safe. Knowing that your story won't go out without your permission. And knowing that you're safe, or that your story is safe with that person. So I think that, having that practice and being able to share, like I shared a lot in, NA meetings and all those things. They're all lived experience too, right? Like those circles, those other forms of telling your story without like giving away too much of your story or your power, right? Or your voice, because these are power holding spaces. I didn't pay to come here, but my story was strong enough and my voice was strong enough that they're like, hey, we need to hear it. Come over here, please. And I did. And it took me a lot of courage to get on that plane.
She's scared to go back.
For me, I think that I had to get angry. I had to get really angry with what was going on, what I was seeing, what I was experiencing. And I tried to sit, like I said, I sat on the community advisory board for homelessness. I had made suggestions. I had said, okay, we need some washrooms because these people need washrooms. We need some water, you know, and they were like, oh, well, we can't do that. We can't do that. It's like, it just frustrated me so much and angered me.
This was your first step. I'll also let you guys know I'm also a person with lived experience too. So we've got a lot of them in the room. Okay, let's give this wonderful panel a round of applause and thank them. And thank you everybody for coming and engaging.